Q&A right here on the FanDuel Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Periscope pages. We are helping you set those waivers for your season-long leagues. Let you know who to pick up to make that stretch run towards the playoffs. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com. Joined here, as always, by JJ Zachariason, editor-in-chief of numberFire and FanDuel. JJ, we are on to week number 9. How are you doing today?
I'm good. My hands look giant whenever I did that. I didn't realize how close I was to the camera, so I should probably just go, "What's up?" like that. I'm good. Not a great waiver wire this week. But fantasy, there's a lot of stuff going on around the league that's not even related to injuries per se, with what's going on with coronavirus. The Green Bay backfield right now has literally no one, so we might get some questions about that. But yeah, I mean, I think that's great that we're already to week 9 and we've had this season so far.
Yeah, it's been a rough week from a COVID perspective because there's been a lot of positive cases popping up. Andy Dalton, the most recent one, which means Cooper Rush is actually going to start for the Cowboys on Sunday against your against your Steelers. Oof, brutal there. Against your Steelers. So that should be pretty interesting. Good luck to you, Cooper Rush. We're going to break down the waiver wire here in just 1 second. But first, a quick reminder that we are live here on the FanDuel Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Periscope pages every Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday. Tuesday, Friday at 3:30 p.m. We have this waiver wire Tuesday. We have a snake draft every Friday at 3:30 p.m. with myself and JJ and Brandon Gadula as well. And then JJ is live every Sunday at noon Eastern to answer your start-sit questions. And we do have a couple of start-sit questions in the YouTube chat right now. I will say it's pretty tough to answer start-sit questions this early in the week because injuries will influence things. We don't know what the trade situation is going to look like because we are recording this before the trade deadline. So we have some start-sit questions. I'd recommend circling back to those once we have a better idea. I am going to ask one here, though, JJ, because it pertains to Thursday's game between the 49ers and the Packers. They're asking about JaMychal Hasty. They have DeAndre Swift, JaMychal Hasty, and Devontae Parker. In that situation, are you trusting Hasty or are you benching him for Swift and Parker there?
I think that you can make the case for Hasty over Parker. The way that the Miami offense was as conservative as it was, Tua was fine, but not great by any means. So it's kind of difficult to be super, super bullish and optimistic in that passing offense in general. With DeAndre Swift, I had him as a buy in the 15 transactions article and podcast today. And the main reason why is he sort of did the opposite of what he's been doing leading up to this point in the season, where for a couple weeks there he was seeing good production, but his peripherals weren't that strong, where he wasn't playing that many snaps. This past week, his snap rate jumped dramatically. It gets up to like 62% or something like that. And then his backfield rush share was the highest of the season that he's seen this year. They didn't run the ball a lot because they had a negative game script, but even still, all of those are good signs for DeAndre Swift, but he didn't produce very well. And so now it's sort of a buy low opportunity because I could see a situation where they just keep using him more and more. So I don't mind Swift, and he has a decent matchup this week too against a beatable defense. So I would probably bench Parker of those three.
And I think that we should brace ourselves for the Adrian Peterson revenge game where he gets 15 carries for 23 yards and 4 touchdowns against Minnesota on Sunday. Daniel is asking about that Packers backfield situation. For those who have not heard yet, Jamal Williams is out Thursday, as is A.J. Dillon. A.J. Dillon tested positive for COVID. Jamal Williams was a close contact, which means he has to isolate for 5 days. Cannot play Thursday, which means Tyler Ervin and Dexter Williams are the running backs remaining in the Green Bay Packers backfield. And JJ, Daniel is asking, are we buying into Tyler Ervin and Dexter Williams as fill-in starters for this week against the 49ers?
I mean, it depends on who you're filling them in for. I would probably, I think that Dexter Williams is more of the traditional running back. He's got better size. Tyler Ervin's been used sort of as a hybrid player where he's a returner. He'll play wide receiver a little bit. He'll catch passes out of the backfield. He'll just do that kind of stuff. Whereas Dexter Williams is probably going to be more of like the traditional early down guy, the goal line back, etc. But at the same time, I think that we're going to see a game where Aaron Rodgers just throws the ball a lot. And whether that's low A-dot passes or not, to sort of just complement the run game that way and just sort of replace the run game that way. I could see that happening. I think right now, though, I'm probably favoring Dexter Williams, but I only say that because I think he's an easier player to project.
Yeah, with Tyler Ervin, I think you can guarantee that he'll be on the field because he's been on the field quite a bit already this year, and he might get some of those tap passes and stuff like that Green Bay loves to do to utilize his speed. But if you're looking for someone to get you legit workload, I think that Williams, like you said, the better bets to get that. Daniel is asking, is Zack Moss a starting caliber player moving forward? Zack Moss did outsnap Devin Singletary, I believe, potentially for the first time in week number 8. He had a better workload too, but still not a perfect workload. So how are you viewing Zack Moss based on what he got in week number 8?
Yeah, I mean, I would view what we saw in week 8 basically was that Zack Moss was Devin Singletary plus goal line work, right? They both had identical rush shares, identical target shares. It's just that Zack Moss saw 3 goal line rushes, which is what we knew going into the season was going to be the case. It's just that Moss has been banged up. Do I think that he's going to be this plug and play guy? No. I think that as long as Devin Singletary is healthy, they're going to have this healthy rotation. And the other thing too with Moss, I think that he's a low key sell candidate right now, just because of the way that people are viewing him. But because the one thing with Moss is that, if you're going to have decent upside with a guy like that, he's going to have to find the end zone. And we know that Josh Allen takes away some of those looks at the goal line. And so you're sort of in this between the 20s, hopefully he falls in the end zone a couple times kind of player. But we can't rely on that week in and week out in this type of offense. They had a good matchup. They exploited that matchup. There's a lot of wind in that game too, so they had to go a little bit more run heavy. That's sort of the main reasons why I'm not ultra high on Zack Moss.
Yeah, I think that you phrased it right when you said Devin Singletary plus goal line, because Devin Singletary is very imperfect back, and Moss is a little bit better than that, but still a lot of imperfections there as well for him. Chris, how should we value Kareem Hunt moving forward with Nick Chubb's impending return? What if we have both Chubb and Hunt? Would you be looking to trade Hunt to maximize roster upside in that scenario? And I'd also ask, should you trade Nick Chubb if you have them both? How would you handle that situation, JJ, if you have both Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt right now?
Yeah, I've seen this recommendation a lot to trade Kareem Hunt, but I think that anyone who would be taking on Kareem Hunt knows exactly why you're trading away Kareem Hunt. It's because Nick Chubb is coming back. Now, you can point to how Kareem Hunt was performing while Chubb was healthy earlier this year, which was fairly unsustainable, likely not going to continue. But I still think Hunt can be in PPR formats like a mid-range RB2 from here on out, given the way that they utilize these two backs before the Chubb injury. And then Chubb, I think, is sort of a low-end RB1 overall. I think that their schedule isn't horrific moving forward. I think it's actually pretty favorable. I'm thinking back. I think Mike Clay sent a tweet out today to look at strength of schedule from a real NFL standpoint. But what that tells me is that if they face easy matchups, they're going to see positive game scripts, which is going to help Nick Chubb specifically a lot. So I think both guys are fine moving forward. I just think the market's going to be kind of crazy specifically on a guy like Kareem Hunt, who, again, if you can sell Hunt as what he is right now, which has been like an RB1-ish type player. I know that he didn't perform very well last week, but just given the usage, then definitely do it, because he's probably going to be bumped down a whole slot in your lineup. But overall, I think that they're still fine.
And I think the good thing too is, like you said, if that schedule is good, that means that, we know this offense is pretty matchup dependent, if we're going to be nice to Baker, because he's been really bad against good teams. Yeah. So that's something you want to avoid for sure. Also, they should get Wyatt Teller back, their guard, after the bye week, and that'll be a huge upgrade for that offense, because they struggle with him being out. The Aircus is asking, do you think Tannehill can do well against the Bears and the Colts, or to pick up Drew Brees, Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, or Derek Carr? Tough matchups for Ryan Tannehill. Would you pick up Brees, Jones, Lock, or Carr over him for the next 2 weeks?
I'd probably look at Brees. I don't know what Brees' week 10's matchup is off the top of my head, but at least this week, I think that you can make the argument that Brees and what could be a higher scoring game with. Honestly, though, that game might just be really frustrating watching these two geriatric quarterbacks throw the ball 5 yards down the field. Even though Brady has been at least chucking it down the field at least a little bit. But yeah, I think I would probably lean Brees there though this week. I don't really like playing anyone against that Bears defense.
Yeah, the Saints get the 49ers at home in week 10, which is not bad given their injury situation. So I think the other thing too with the Saints is they're better equipped to handle that Tampa Bay defense because their offensive line is so good. So they're not going to I wouldn't expect them to be great against Tampa Bay, but they're better equipped to handle it than most teams, which is good.
Yeah, I mean, Tampa Bay's second, not only that, Tampa Bay's on a short week after playing on Monday night, but Tampa Bay's secondary looked really bad against the Giants last night. Daniel Jones just played horrifically. And a lot of people were making fun of his deep ball numbers and such. He's actually been pretty decent on deep balls this year. It's just that last night he could not hit Darius Slayton at all on multiple plays where he was wide open for a big play. If some of those hit, all of a sudden Tampa Bay gets smoked in that game, right? So I'm not as concerned about that matchup. Slightly recency bias, but like you said, they should be able to handle them up front, which is going to allow for a little bit more time. And then maybe also Michael Thomas is back. I don't know exactly the situation there. I feel like it's a weekly thing where you're monitoring it on like Wednesday and Thursday, and then it's like, oh, Michael Thomas isn't playing this week. But if Michael Thomas is back, I don't know if you've heard anything, but if he is back, that's good too.
I'd expect him back because he was back at practice last week, so I would expect him to play. But that's the weird situation.
Weird. It's so weird. Yeah.
We can't handle this thing the way we handle most situations. So we'll see. Altair is asking, should I play DeAndre Swift or pick up Marvin Jones to play for flex this week? We talked about Swift, so we can leave that there. But is Marvin Jones someone you're targeting with Kenny Golladay likely out for this week?
Yeah, he is. So the Vikings this season have been pretty bad against wide receivers. I think that they're fifth in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver position. And then on top of that, they've given up the most wide receiver touchdowns. They've given up the seventh most yards to wide receivers. I only know this off the top of my head because I talked about it on a podcast that's coming out tomorrow. But so that matchup's not bad. Marvin Jones too, with Kenny Golladay active, there were those two games when Kenny Golladay came back after the first 2 weeks of the season, and we saw Marvin Jones's target share drop to about 8% per game, right? The first couple of games, it was fine, but he wasn't producing. The last 3 weeks, he's been at a target share at like 17.5%. So we've seen a combination of him being used a little bit more, which is great. And then now Babytron's out. So we've seen that have an impact on Marvin Jones this season. So yeah, I think all of that together, Marvin Jones is probably a wide receiver 3 type play this week.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And anyone benefits in that offense with Golladay opening up as many targets as he does. So I think that's a positive, especially in this matchup. They play indoors too, which is great.
Yeah.
Francis, how to prioritize tight end? Jordan Reed, Logan Thomas, Dalton Schultz, hard pass, Irv Smith, or do they trade Damian Harris for Dallas Goedert? So do you trade Damian Harris for Dallas Goedert or pick up a guy like Jordan Reed, Logan Thomas, or Irv Smith?
I'm not opposed at all trading Damian Harris for a guy like Dallas Goedert. So Goedert, a lot of people are asking me this week who they should be looking at for a replacement for George Kittle. My answer is sort of Dallas Goedert, and the main reason for that is he's on a bye this week, so he's going to be easier to acquire. And even though he didn't really do much against Dallas, the peripheral numbers were still there, routes run, snaps, et cetera, et cetera. And we know that he was balling out before he got hurt earlier this season. So I'm actually pretty bullish on Goedert in general. But of the guys that you mentioned, I think it was Reed, Logan Thomas, Dalton Schultz, and maybe those three. But
Irv Smith is in there too.
Yeah, okay. So Irv Smith's whatever. Logan Thomas is the guy who's probably the most intriguing of that group, only because Jordan Reed I think has a decent ceiling. I just don't trust that passing offense really that much right now. He's more of a streaming type, whereas Logan Thomas, 17.5% target share on the season. We know that he's going to run a lot of routes. We know he's going to be involved in the offense in some way, so he has a decent floor. Then if he finds the end zone, he has a ceiling too.
Yep, I think that's the right way to play things because you at least know he'll be on the field. Yeah. And that's valuable to know at this point in the year. Joey is asking, is it crazy to put Zeke outside the top 10 running backs at this point? Top 20, maybe. We can talk about that. Is he a hold if you can only sell him for a little or sell for what you can with Zeke?
Yeah, I mean, I think that he's probably shoppable. And just talk to some managers and see what they're thinking about him, because I think that there's a pretty wide range of acceptance or valuation with how people would view Zeke right now. But yeah, I mean, I think, Jim, you're right. I think he's, based on volume alone, probably like an RB2. But I can't put him in that RB1 territory anymore after, the entire situation. The problem is, though, whenever we say RB2 and RB1, we're just giving it like very general context.
Right.
The problem is that there aren't many running backs in general, right? Like,
right.
like who are you realistically putting ahead of him? Because once you get into like low end RB1 territory, I'm talking like RB9 at this point. It's like Josh Jacobs, which I would rather have Josh Jacobs probably than Zeke moving forward. But there's still plenty of question marks around Jacobs, who doesn't see a lot of volume through the air. Zeke has 2 straight games with bad target shares and target numbers, but we saw him just get fed earlier in the season, with Dak, understandably. But, we saw him get fed earlier in the season. If that turns around a little bit in a PPR format, that's still valuable to give Zeke some sort of a floor. So, yes, I would still be viewing guys like James Robinson and Josh Jacobs over Zeke. But then, once you get to like Jonathan Taylor, like I don't know how you can really trust Jonathan Taylor over Zeke right now, right? So there's a lot of question marks. The running back position just sucks. If you don't have the Dalvin Cooks of the world and the CMCs of the world and the Alvin Kamaras of the world, you're just kind of in this like no man's land. It's really not that hard to see Zeke as a high end RB2, but he's probably lower than where the market thinks that he is.
Yeah, so it depends on what they're willing to offer you. If they're willing to offer you a usable piece, cool. Like, I mean, do that for sure, but don't sell them for nothing, I think is kind of what JJ is saying there. Joseph is asking, would you drop John Brown to pick up Jalen Reagor? Reagor is currently in his IR slot, so he would need to drop John Brown to activate him. Would you make that swap of dropping Brown to get Reagor?
Yeah. Main reason, I love Smokey, obviously, but main reason is the Eagles' schedule moving forward after this bye. Really, really favorable. I wrote up Reagor this week as a bye, and I believe it was like 5 of the 7 games that they have moving forward are against top 10 teams, top 11 teams maybe, and adjusted fantasy points allowed to wide receivers, or bottom 11, I should say. And Jalen Reagor had a 23% target share in his first game back this past week. He didn't really produce all that well, but I think that he's going to be here, long term, as long as he can stay healthy. He's a really good prospect too. So I would lean Reagor there.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense there. And like just a fun offense too. I mean, like with all the availability there, the available targets. Hopefully Wentz can actually hit him. Michael is asking, are we dropping CeeDee Lamb yet? CeeDee Lamb with his like 17% target share was fun when they were throwing 50 times a game with Dak Prescott. When they're throwing 30 times a game with Cooper Rush now, it's a lot less fun. Can you drop CeeDee Lamb?
Probably. I think it always depends on who you're picking up for that player. But I would also say that he's sort of now that kind of player that you're going to just want to keep on your bench all season long and never play. And that's just frustrating to have. I'd rather him be someone else's problem. And if Lamb goes berserk, I don't see
Can you
how
predict when he's going to go berserk, though? I think that's the big issue.
Yeah, right. Because, we only have, 7 or 8 weeks left for fantasy purposes, and only, a handful, 6 left, let's say, I'm doing quick math, it's week 9. So 5 left of the regular season for fantasy purposes. And so you have to think to yourself, like, okay, what are the scenarios where CeeDee Lamb becomes a reliable weekly starter? The scenario is they get a quarterback who you also can rely on. Well, Andy Dalton now is on the COVID list. So that's 3 weeks. And he's unless they trade for someone today, Andy Dalton is the one key to their potential success. And we don't even know if that success would happen or not, right? So, if Dalton's not going to be back for 3 weeks, that gives you only a couple of weeks maybe of Dalton before the playoffs start. So, yeah, I think it's a rough situation. But you nailed it, Jim. I mean, it's just one of those scenarios where, it was fine when we had 5 pass catchers at a 15% target share in that offense when it had Dak Prescott, but it's not fine anymore.
It is very much not fine. Jason is asking, he asked Hawkinson or Fanny. He meant Noah Fant. He clarified that later, but I think Fanny's pretty funny, so I'm going to go with that.
Besties with Noah Fant. He's like, hey, Fanny.
What's up, Fanny? TJ Hawkinson or Noah Fanny rest of the season?
Probably Noah Fant. I only say that his target shares have been incredible. I think that you can make a case for Hawkinson because he's been a fairly high floor kind of player, but I think Fant just has a little bit better of a ceiling. And I mean, you have to love that Drew Lock has some DGAF in him. I mean, he throws the ball deep at the second highest rate in the league behind Kirk Cousins, and they're throwing it. They're more likely to be in negative game scripts too. So I think Fant is probably like a top 5-ish tight end. from here on out because the tight end position is just so bad.
Right. And like, I think Fant's target share in games with Locke is 20% or so, even though like Alberto is still getting targets, like there are just enough targets to go around. So I think that that Fant is a really good option there. Thomas James, I am in a 2-quarterback league. Do I stream Nick Mullins, Kyle Allen, or whoever starts for the Jags, or Cooper Rush? So it sounds like Jake Luton is starting for the Jags. Would you go Mullins, Allen, Luton, or Rush there?
I'm probably leaning Kyle Allen against the Giants. Short week for the Giants. Relatively beatable defense. I mean, the defense is better than people give them credit for, I think. And that game kind of sucks from has like a 42.5 point over under, I believe, right now over on FanDuel Sportsbook. But it's just tough to start a guy only has Brandon Ayuk healthy right now, and that's going to be easy to lock down for that secondary. So I'm probably leaning Kyle Allen there.
Yeah, I think that makes sense too, especially because the matchup's pretty good too. Itachi is asking, we already talked about Logan Thomas and Jordan Reed, but they also have Eric Ebron available on waivers. So we mentioned Thomas is your priority. Would you rank Eric Ebron above Thomas?
That's tough. I think I would probably still go Thomas for more of a stable floor each week, but I think that you can make a case this week in particular that Ebron would be the play because I think that there's just a chance that Pittsburgh puts up 35 plus points on Dallas. So, you want a piece of that offense. But, the volume might not be there. I think the problem with Ebron is that not only are the wide receivers for Pittsburgh sort of in and out every week, maybe a little bit volatile. We don't know exactly how to predict who's going to see the usage, but that's even worse for him at tight end. So I would probably lean Logan Thomas there.
All right. Michael is asking, he has Patrick Mahomes on a bye. Should he grab Derek Carr or Teddy Bridgewater or Tua Tagovailoa against Arizona? It's a tough week for streamers because both Derek Carr and Teddy Bridgewater are in objectively pretty tough matchups. Tua, unproven thus far. Where would you lean between those three?
Yeah, who's Carolina get this week again? I can't remember.
They're facing Kansas City on the road. I don't know if road matters anymore, but they're facing Kansas City on the road.
Yeah, and I don't really love the Chargers matchup either, even though they've been susceptible at times. I might lean Carr there. It was Carr, Bridgewater, and
Carr, Bridgewater, and Tua. And of those guys, Derek Carr is the only one at home. If you still care, I still kind of care personally, but people may not. I think I'd agree just because the floor is good there. And Teddy, I like Teddy, but the floor is not very good in that situation. Michael is asking, he is a Kittle manager. Jared Cook is available on waivers. Would you prioritize Jared Cook over Big Shot Bob Tunyon? I think it's Logan Thomas or Jordan Reed. So you got Cook and Tunyon. We have not talked about those guys yet. Either of them priorities for you over Logan Thomas?
I think Jared Cook is not a bad option, mostly because we see him targeted in the end zone. He's a red zone threat, obviously.
He's their deep threat at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. I think that there is some hesitation with when Michael Thomas comes back, but we saw Jared Cook thrive last year with that happening, and even though there is some regression coming from that last season, I would probably lean Cook, but I think both are probably in the same tier.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Like Jared Cook isn't going to get a lot of targets, but he'll get valuable targets, and I think that's a good thing at tight end. Samir is asking, is Boston Scott a must-hold for people with Miles Sanders, or is it okay to drop him now with the bye week and Sanders likely to return after that? Oh, looks like we may have lost JJ. So we'll move on. I think that Samir asking about that one, I think in that situation, it would be okay to drop Boston Scott. You got the bye week, and then Sanders likely back after that. So I would say go ahead and cut bait with Boston Scott there. We'll see if we can get JJ back here. Oh, JJ is back. Emiliano is asking, I shouldn't drop Carlos Hyde, right? I have Carson and picked up DJ Dallas too. So Emiliano, JJ, has 3 different Seattle running backs. Would you drop Carlos Hyde in that situation?
So wait, who he has? Sorry, I'm coming back from not having internet.
No worries. Would you drop? So Emiliano has Carlos Hyde and also Chris Carson and DJ Dallas. He can probably drop Carlos Hyde, right?
Yeah, it sounds like Carson could. I mean, Carson was questionable going into
Carson
that
was
game.
closer to playing than Hyde was.
Yeah, exactly. So I would probably drop Carson. I actually think that DJ Dallas might have played himself into some sort of role too after what he did this past week, where he could steal some of that receiving work. So yeah, I mean, you don't need all 3 of those running backs. I would just drop Carlos Hyde.
I agree, especially because you have all three. I think that's a bigger incentive to drop Carlos Hyde.
Yes.
Ian is asking, is Isaiah Ford worth an ad now that he is on the Patriots? Good for 20% target share on the Patriots, which is about 3 targets per game. How are you viewing Isaiah Ford with his new team?
Look, I think Isaiah Ford is good. I have been a lot of dynasty teams just because I think that he.
Possible we lost JJ again. So I think he was going to talk about Isaiah Ford overall. Oh, JJ's back. Just kidding. What's up?
I don't know what is going on with my internet right now. I'm gonna have to call my internet provider after this.
So you said you had Isaiah Ford in a couple of dynasty leagues.
Yeah, look, I love Isaiah Ford, the player. I think that he's good. My problem is that I like Jacoby Myers too, and I don't know exactly what they're gonna do in playing them because they both can be slot guys. But Edelman being out, maybe that has something to do with this, and they want to sort of mold someone because Isaiah Ford's a slot guy, and so. We'll see how that plays out. Is he an ad in like a normal 12-team league? No, I wouldn't be adding him.
Yeah. Danny is asking, how do you feel about the Baltimore backfield the rest of the way? When Mark Ingram comes back, do you think it goes back to how it was before his injury, or has J.K. Dobbins earned a larger piece of the pie with his performance?
He's earned a larger piece of the pie. I just worry that Mark Ingram's still going to be around, and if he's still around, that's still a 3-headed monster in the backfield. But Dobbins, to me, if you watch the game, I mean, Gus Edwards has played well too. Don't get me wrong. Like I think Gus Edwards is a good running back. But Rich Rebar, Lord Reeves on Twitter, he had a great tweet yesterday saying that missed tackle rate, J.K. Dobbins among all 50-plus attempt running backs is first in the league. Mark Ingram is last in the league. So I think that the eye test shows that too. If you watch J.K. Dobbins, that guy is so slippery. Yeah. And he's just so fun to watch. So I would assume, playoff push for Baltimore. They're going to need their guys, the best players on the field. And so I would assume J.K. Dobbins maybe sees more of like a 30 to 40% running back rush share moving forward on average, where it was like 15%, when Mark Ingram was healthy. But to me, the fear is that, we all know the upside is there. We know that there's crazy upside with J.K. Dobbins. My fear is that we're sort of enamored with that and we're not being sort of logical about the usage there. J.K. Dobbins' time is 2021. It's not necessarily here in 2020. Can he reach that ceiling this year? Sure. But if Mark Ingram is healthy, I'm still a little bit hesitant on him.
Yeah. I think that's the right way to view it, just because J.K. Dobbins was good before Mark Ingram got hurt, and he still didn't get additional carries. So, it's not as if this is a new thing. And I think that's the concern there. Final one from Massimo. He is asking, is Nick Mullins worth a bench stash for a 2-quarterback league? My perspective is that he has a pulse and is a starting quarterback. Yeah. Therefore, he's probably worth having in a 2-quarterback league. Do you agree?
Yeah, he's been productive, too, in the past for San Francisco. I think that he might not, he's not going to be like a QB1, but he could be usable, and it's a super flex league or 2-quarterback league, and he should be rostered.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's and there was a trade value too. If you have an active league, I think that's noteworthy as well. That is all the time that we have here for today. But as mentioned, we are live once again 2 more times this week, Friday 3:30 for our snake draft Q&A, and then JJ will answer your start-sit questions for week number 9. That is at noon Eastern on Sunday. So make sure you're subscribed to the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Periscope pages to get those questions in, and also check us out for each of those times. JJ, where can people find 15 transactions and the rest of your work?
Yeah, so the 15 transactions article came out today over on numberFire.com. I also did the podcast for it, which is the Late Round Podcast, which you can find anywhere podcasts can be found.
All righty, and make sure you follow JJ on Twitter at LateRoundQB. I am at Jim Sannes, JimSannes. Big thank you to Calvin Theobald, our video producer, for running the video side of things here today. Thank you, Cal, as always, and thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck with your Week 9 waivers and with your Week 9 lineups. We'll talk to you once again on Friday with the Snake Draft. This has been the Waiver Wire Q&A.